think of your life sort of from a future back perspective. Fast forward 10 years from now and think about the kind of life that you want to lead. I think the metaphor of like a painting, like your life is a painting, and what is the kind of painting that you want to see 10 years from now? In terms of where are you living, what are you wearing, what kind of job are you doing, who are you living with, how are you feeling? And it may be vague, but think about it. Because I really believe that everything in this world is created twice, first in your mind and then in reality. And
Mm.
very often we don't begin with the end in mind, we just keep living life and then one day, boom, it's over, you know. And you say, oh my God, this is not a dress rehearsal, this is the real thing. And I don't like where I have landed. How did I get here? Suddenly you wake up and you say, what happened to me? So we don't want that. So I think just stopping first and saying, where do I want to go? What am I trying to do? And having a end in mind is, I think, very important. So to have the audacity to dream, you
Mm.
know, to dream and to dream and actually to write it down and to visualize it and remind yourself of that, I think is very, very important. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is to be able to achieve that dream. One has to say, okay, it has to be innately curious. Okay, how have other people done it? Phil Knight and others, and so many people who've already walked that road before. What was so different about what they did, and how can I learn from that? How can I learn from what I have been through? And how can I relearn some other skills and unlearn what is not useful? So learning and curiosity is the second thing around, I think that's such an important attribute. This almost sort of childlike, you know, hunger to learn and be curious. So begin with the end in mind and then have this childlike curiosity. Um, I feel the third important thing is, and this is very important, to be successful. I think as a leader, you need both competence but also character. I
Mm.
think everybody knows about competence. Everybody knows you have to become good at skilled at what you need to do. But I don't think we pay quite the same amount of attention to character, which is about who am I? What do I stand for? What do I believe in? How do I want to show up? Because I think leadership is all about establishing trust, and trust is about consistent behavior. Consistent behavior is about clarity of values. So I think those three things are important. So you visualize where you want to go, you have curiosity, and you strengthen your character. I think the financial success, I'll tell you, for me um, personally, it, it it was a couple of failures that deepened my resolve. So when I lost my first daughter, Tanya, I didn't have the financial means to take care of her medical care. And I can't tell you how desperate I felt as a father. And then when I lost, or was about to lose Aisha, when she had to have the bone marrow transplant and we had to raise money in the UK, I again didn't have money. And I had such a desperate feeling in the pit of my stomach that as a father, I was a failure because I was not financially able to take care of my family. And that really deepened my resolve that I don't want to ever be in a situation where I'm not financially independent and I cannot look after my family. That would be the biggest failure. So to me, money is important, but more in the form of, a means to an end so that you can take care of your family. And finally, I think what drives me in my career is, it's about being focused on what you're putting in and not worrying about the outcome, and being very sort of intentional about the purity of intent. And therefore, I am really driven by being the best version, learning, and having the most powerful impact that I can potentially create. Because the only thing in my control is what I put in. What actually happens is kind of some ways beyond my control. So I'm inspired when I have an assignment where I can learn, I can have an impact, and that makes me do more impactful things, make a difference. And then I have been fortunate to be in situations where I've gotten different opportunities and continue to grow.
I'm going to go back to the money point for a minute, because in the movie, I really I felt you. And I don't know why I felt it more the second time, because I already knew what was coming, but I felt it. And it reminds me of many entrepreneur stories. In fact, I have friends who are like, I don't know if I can make payroll or whatever. Like, they're in a really not so great situation. And with the pandemic, there's definitely a lot of people in a tumultuous financial situation. Like, do you remember what that was like? And what I mean is like the steps that you took, like,
Sure.
some
So,
actual tactical steps.
so I think for everybody is for all the listeners who may not have seen the movie, which by the way you must see. The Sky
Yeah.
is Pink.
Good.
This is the situation. So my daughter is 8 months old. She requires a bone marrow transplant. I'm living in India. I have to take her to the UK for the bone marrow transplant. Bone marrow transplant costs 150,000 pounds. I have only 2,000 pounds. I have to raise 150,000 pounds in 2 weeks. If I don't, she will die, and she would be the second daughter that I would have lost. And that was the context. So I'm in the UK. I don't have friends. I don't have family. I don't know anybody. And it's a country that's not my own, and I have to raise 150,000 pounds in about 2 weeks time. So the first thing I did was I reminded myself to not be the victim,
Mm,
uh, to take control and spend all my energy on focusing on what I can do, and remind myself that, as a father, it was my responsibility to save my child, and this was not a time for me to indulge in pity and and feel bad about myself. I had to actually step up, and get my stuff together. So I went to the High Commissioner of India, the Indian Embassy in the UK, and I asked him. I said, "Give me a list of all the rich Asians in London." And I said, "Can you help me?" And he said, "I can't help you because they had limitations." But he was kind enough to connect me or give me a list of all the rich Asians. I started calling them one by one. You know, Suraj Paul and many others, prominent Indians. And sometimes if your intent is good, the right doors open. And I felt that every phone call I made, people said, "Okay, if you can prove this to me, here's 5,000, 10,000, etc." And people were just committing funds over the phone. I still knew that it was nowhere near enough. I was still way short, and I knew this would not get me to where I wanted to go. And again, same thing. Okay, what else can I be doing? Who else can I speak to? So I took out my address book and started calling all my friends. Do you know anybody? And uh, it all led me to a person called Avtar Lit, who owned Sunrise Radio. A friend of mine connected me to him. I went to see him, and I just poured my heart out as a father, and I said how much I needed in radio appeal. And I said, I don't know how to do this, but can you please do this for me? And again, he was kind enough to agree. The radio appeal happened, and it just exploded. I mean, in 5 days we had 250,000 pounds, far more than what we needed. We had to then appeal for people to stop sending money, and all of that was given to the hospital. But I think, to me, what I realized was the importance of focusing on what you can do.
mm,
And if the intent is good, keep knocking on doors, and something will open. Something
yeah.
will work. It's the same old adage about don't give up, etc. But I think it's about, I think, finding I find emotional energy in difficult situations to remind myself to focus on what I can do and take action, you know, and not just sit there and worry about things. Like, what am I going to do? Make a
Yeah.
list, and get after it.
Yeah.